Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
All right, thank you everyone for joining our Healthy Neighborhood Advisory Committee today on October 8th, 2025. I'm calling this meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. And our first order of business is approval of minutes. Did anyone have discussion on the meeting minutes for 8/6/2025? Nope, I'm pretty sure I need a motion first. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Perfect. Now is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Love it. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item number 3, public appearances for non-agenda items. There is no one on Zoom and no one in chambers. Caitlin, are you aware of anybody for non-agenda items?
I think it's just me.
Okay, love it. Moving on. Agenda item number 4, agenda review. We have the agenda items under 5, and then we have report from department and announcements and adjournment. Does anybody want to change any of that? Okay, sounds great. Agenda item number 5A. Summary of mid-year check-in with grantees. I'm going to pass it over to our staff. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're going to work through this PowerPoint. So if you want to read all of the agenda items, you can, but the PowerPoint essentially walks us through it all. So we'll go, the agenda is listed up here. It's just giving an overview of what we'll be discussing this evening. So we'll start with the check-ins, and then we'll go to the outreach that myself and the navigator did this summer. We'll compare that to our quantitative information that we collected from the American Community Survey and Census, and that was all collected through ArcGIS. And I'll walk you through all of that, talking through some neighborhood maps, and those include the land use maps as well as the low to moderate income maps that the census provides us. And then we'll go and review the grant funding. That'll just be a beginning discussion for the grants because those are coming up faster than we might think. And then there's a forestry letter that we'll review and sign here at the end. So for the mid-year check-ins, I did those personally one-on-one with our grantees. We talked about this last year because we didn't feel like it was it would save the grantees time for me to go do it personally. So I have a quick summary of who I met with, if they've used the funds, what they've used them for, or if the funds are upcoming. Madison Reading Project, their funding is going towards the free book fairs, which are all coming up in the fall. So they haven't used their funding yet, but will be soon. The Catholic Multicultural Center, their funding is strictly being used for food, specifically milk, eggs, and meat. Root to Rise, their programming is finished and wrapped up, and it was used for paying their tutor mentors. So know if you all remember that program, but it's where a high schooler works with elementary schoolers and mentors them, and they get paid $1,000 during the summer. The Boys and Girls Club, the funding's used to provide hot meals for teens after school. The Road Home funding is being used for a woman in Southdale to help with her rent in Maple Glen. The Allied Food Pantry, the funds are being used again for milk, eggs, and meat. Those are the most expensive items, and both food pantries said that they go off the shelves quite quickly. Active Youth Wisconsin, the funds have been used for bike trailer, new shoes, equipment, and swimsuits, and then for Rooted, they're over in Southdale at Badger Rock. Those funds are being used to support that neighborhood center by holding gardening classes, providing local produce, and community dinners. I did want to mention that I didn't hear back from Badger Prairie Needs Network, Leopold PFO, Boys and Girls Club, Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Dane County, the River Food Pantry, and Unidos in terms of doing a one-on-one check-in. So we also granted them funds, but no one reached out to check in. So I'm sure for their end-of-year reporting, we'll hear from them. But for this check-in, I didn't receive anything. So these are on all of the people we fund, but the ones that I was able to get in contact with. Are there any questions?
Just a quick question. When does this process restart for the 2026?
Mm-hmm. So the reporting for 2025 is due at the end of January. And then the application for 2026 is due at the beginning of February. Last year it was February 10th. And we've talked with the grantees about this. Is this an issue for you to apply? Would you like for us to change the scheduling? Because we understand, you're reporting while you're trying to apply. And most of the feedback was it's fine how it is, because if we change when their application is due, then they get their funding later. So budgeting wise, they would like to know sooner.
Okay. And is the application process open right now, or when does that open up?
The application process opens at the end of the year.
Okay.
So around December.
Yeah. Just wanted to go through that point again for those that are watching, and if this might be like one of the only touch points that we have for this kind of like giving campaign, that applications open at the end of the year and are due by the end of February.
The beginning of February.
Beginning of February, okay.
Yes. Yep, February 10th. Well, that's how it was last year. The dates might change a little bit, but same schedule.
So ideally the first month of the year is when the applications are open, and with some give or take a couple of days.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. So now we're going to get into the summer outreach results. And what we're looking at here is these are big posters that I created before the beginning of the summer. And essentially what this is a survey. But I had gotten a lot of feedback that people don't enjoy taking surveys. They feel like they're taking tons of surveys for the city. And I understand that. So I wanted to meet people where they are, and created these posters and then took them to outreach events that occurred over the summer. So what residents could do is take a dot sticker, and they got 3 stickers, and they could put them on their top priorities for their neighborhood. So we have 6 variables here, and each of them has subcategories to narrow it down a little bit more to understand, like, okay, if they want housing, what specifically would they like to see? And these are the results that we got from Southdale. We had the posters both in English and Spanish for our Hispanic Latino community. And this event for Southdale, I had only been made aware of one outreach event that was happening, and that was hosted by the River Food Pantry. So we attended that event, and for one event, I feel like we got quite a bit of responses here. I'll walk through these, and then at the end there is a chart that I'll go through. It's a really good graphic that's in visual that you can clearly see for each neighborhood where their priority lies, and then it breaks it down further based on these subcategories. So we can get a little bit more into the weeds once we get to that visual. But I did want to show these graphs because these are I put these through the printer, so everyone, it was a lot of fun. Ton of fun getting the dots and meeting the residents and just talking with people. So there's Southdale.
For the Spanish on these posters, do you have a resource here in the city that is bilingual, or are you getting these translations online? The reason I'm saying is that I've noticed some errors, and like we notice those things, right? It's just like saying like, you know, we is taking surveys, like we notice the error in that sentence. So it's just kind of one of those things that, you know, I want to make sure that whatever we're putting out there is correct for our Latino, Latina, Latinx community. So just a quick question, not like a accusation or anything, not anything malice, but just wanted to see if we can kind of like better the Spanish that we're putting out into the community. So just wondering how the city put that together.
That's a really great question. So I'm not fluent in Spanish. I do have some background and can communicate, but what I use, because it's what I found most useful when I was abroad, is Spanish dictionary. I found it to be the most accurate, and you can change the dialect, which for me was very useful because I studied in Spain, and so the way that they speak is much different than if I were to go to Latin America. So that's the resource that I use when I'm translating Spanish. I recognize with me not being a native speaker, not being fluent, there probably are inaccuracies, but my resource is Spanish dictionary.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe it wouldn't hurt to have like somebody like second go over the work. I mean, it looks great, but I think maybe we can leverage kind of like maybe the CEC but I think it's a really good job.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's
we don't have a person that does it.
Sorry?
Even when we did, I keep forgetting. Even when we did the housing survey and some of those things that we sent out, like the translations were done by another service, like not somebody from inside the city hall.
Yeah. And I will say the navigator that we had at the time, she was bilingual, and I did have her review this. Again, with dialects. I think here, this, like in writing it should be, and it's not like it should be universal around, but
Neutral. Yeah.
Yes, she did look it over for any mistakes. But I understand, again, I'm not fluent, so I can't look at it. And
there's some words that are just like unrecognizable and that we can like cater, but that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, yeah.
Other than that, I think it's a really great job.
I appreciate that. And then there was another, I should have screen printed that board, but there was another board that had a prompt for people to answer questions on sticky notes. And so those questions were, what would make your neighborhood healthier and what would make life better in your neighborhood? And so this is just showing those comments that we received from Southdale, what they would like to see. We had two asking the same, to open the road service from Deer Valley to Rimrock, more lighting in the park, and then better support and safe parks. So these, I think, really complement that dot voting, because the dot voting is a prompt for them, whereas here they can provide their own ideas and not be prompted from the other board. Yeah, Caitlin?
Thank you, Jessica. I am wondering if these comment results is that like a summary of themes, or did you get 4 responses?
I got 4 responses from that one event.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions on this? Okay. So Allied had the most responses. They had Parks Alive, which is the city of Madison. So they had 3 of those throughout the year. So I do also want to say that they had the most events that we were able to attend. And again, this visual at the end, it'll summarize how many responses we got for each category. But there's a lot in Allied for parks and green space and housing. But then if we go to the comments, go ahead. Do you have a question? No. Lots of comments here, and what I noticed was that a lot of them I felt like relate to safety in this community. We have talks of less violence, stop stealing, control the gang violence, respect. People would like to see respect between neighbors and others, more policing. So when I look at that overarchingly, I think safety is maybe a concern in this area. But then we also have things like updating the park, wanting a shelter, some community gardens, some sports. There's some other comments there. Are there any questions here? Okay. So Northfish and / King James, when when the neighborhood navigator, when she went to King James, I was out of town, so I wasn't able to print some boards specifically for her, specifically for that neighborhood. So there are some, if you looked really, really, really closely, that some of these dots have written on them NF. And she did that for New Fountains because that event was in the New Fountains apartment complex. So this board is representing both Northfish and the King James Way neighborhoods. With King James Way, there was only one event this summer also that we could attend, and it was a movie night hosted by Redeemer City Church in the New Fountains apartment complex. So here, I would say from these visuals, housing is a big concern. I mean, it is in all of these neighborhoods, but it's quite visible on these two photos. Are there any questions about this? Okay. And then these are the comments that were received. We didn't receive any from King James, so these are all comments from the Northfish community.
So is this again from like Parks Alive events from the Leopold neighborhood or something?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Lovely.
Parks Alive events. And they also had some comments relating to safety, but there was some talk of housing as well. Nothing too targeted, too specific. Like Southdale, I had that very specific of connecting the two roads together. These were a little more broad. Okay, so here's this visual that kind of wraps everything together. So when I click on it, it breaks down all of those variables that we were looking at. So if we click, we go zoom back out here. You can see in each neighborhood, the largest block is where you had the most votes. And so like Northfish, you had the most votes in housing, but if you click in here, affordable rent had the most votes out of those subcategories. Also, more playgrounds is pretty close, and access to affordable healthcare is tied with affordable rent. So although housing had the most votes total, when you break it down by subcategory, you can see the difference between they're looking for affordable rent, but also affordable healthcare is a big need here, something that they would like to see. It got the equal amount of votes as housing did. So for Northfish, we got 53 votes, and 7 are coming from affordable rent, 7 from access to affordable healthcare. And so what my plan is with this information, as well as this quantitative data that we're going to look at, is it's going to really steer the initiatives and goals of the Healthy Neighborhood Strategic Plan with what these neighborhoods and how we're going to try and support them. So some ideas that I have floating around with Northfish looking at access to affordable healthcare as one of their larger issues that they might like support in is, okay, can we potentially work with some partners to get some vaccine clinics, to maybe get some. When I worked at a previous role, it was really interesting. Some eye doctors would come out and check kids' eyes. How can we maybe provide some food, and what specific healthcare are they looking for? But the plan isn't made yet. But as I work through it, this information is going to help guide those goals and objectives, and we'll complement that with this quantitative information we've gotten from Census and the American Community Survey and ArcGIS. So I can zoom out here, and if you guys want me to click on things, go through things, let me know.
I would be very interested in being able to click into it myself, but which I can't from the PDF. But I would love, like just how you did for North Fish Hatchery, if you could click into each individual area. Sorry, you already did North Fish Hatchery. Like doing that, but for Southdale, for Allied, and then we can see the top priorities for each neighborhood.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So for Allied, it's looking like affordable rent and mortgage is big here as well. With 17 more playgrounds they're looking for, and some more grocery stores, has 14. So affordable rent and mortgage has the most with 17, then moving to more grocery stores and then more playgrounds. In a total here, we got 145 votes from those dot boards.
How much is access to affordable health care there?
13. And it looks like for this one, 26, 27, 28, 24. It's like transportation got the most votes out of everybody. So if you're just looking at the variable itself, transportation is their biggest priority, but out of these subcategories, affordable rent. So, and I have heard a lot from this neighborhood that they would like to see some lighting, some traffic calming in the area. Their bus routes are changing over there. Actually, at the meeting, there was a meeting, and Metro was there. Metro talked about the bus route changes, and from my understanding of that meeting, that neighborhood's not too pleased with the changes that they've decided to make over there. So transportation, from everything I've heard, is a large issue here. And when I come up with the goals and objectives there, probably work with the traffic engineers to see what's possible for us to do over there. Because that neighborhood on a map, there's like a finger that's Madison, and that's Allied Drive, and then the surrounding area is Fitchburg. So it is, again, this is all really interesting to me to see that transportation is the most voted for in terms of the variable, but then when you break it down, affordable rent and mortgage has the most dots. Anything else we'd like to discuss?
Thank you for the presentation. So basically, I know that these are what people feel like they need in their neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And I know the city has been existing for quite a while. And I know maybe for example, Allied, with this information, is it gonna be able for the city to like provide like maybe answers or resources to most of these concerns of theirs that had already been put in place, and maybe more that might be coming, so they have an idea in terms of if there's going to be another survey like this, knowing what they have on hand, knowing where they can get more answers, rather than waiting for that survey to come to them to make these complaints. Do they have an idea how to do that? Like, do they have an idea about the resources they can use to reach out, or there's already available, or maybe the groups who normally give aids to how they can assess them? Was something like that done during the survey?
Right. That's a great question. So for one of my ideas for this plan is creating some type of informational literature, flyer, brochure, something, so that when new people move into the community, working with the landlords of, hey, when you have a new tenant come in, can you please give them this? It has the city's numbers of if they have a building issue, if they would like resources from the library or the senior center, things like that. But currently, I think the only resource the residents have is the city's website. So there's not, I would say, something like actively hanging up in the neighborhood that provides those numbers, but something I'm looking at implementing and doing for the residents.
Yeah, that will be helpful. Thank you.
I would also hope that most people would know to call United Way for questions about resources. That phone number is 211. In addition, we do have, or the city has JFF workers and like all sorts of other social workers in the areas in these different neighborhoods. So it's not just the city that's trying to do the work of spreading information about what services are available. So we'll for sure want to work in collaboration with any other nonprofits who are also spreading that information.
Yes. Yep. There's tons of work being done in these neighborhoods. You're right. It's not just the city. JFF, I know, is a huge resource in every single one of these neighborhoods, as well as the food pantries that are in some of them and the parks spaces that are there. There's quite a bit going on. Any more questions on the Allied neighborhood? No? Okay. We'll go into Southdale next. So we had 59 votes total. Looks like food access and parks and green space are the top two here that people would like to see. So, well, let's see here. 7. Look, but most it got for subcategories, safety got the most with more street lighting or neighborhood patrol. And if you remember from the comments, one of the comments was more lighting in the park. So my understanding from what we gathered here is people would really like to see more lighting in this neighborhood, especially in the park. But then also food access and parks and green space, some more playgrounds, which I know that this neighborhood's getting their new equipment. I'm not sure on the date, but I do know that that's happening. And then free or low-cost community meals and more grocery stores is what kind of the highlights are for this. Any questions for this neighborhood? Comments?
Can you just quickly roll over how many for affordable rent and how many for affordable healthcare?
Yeah. So we're looking at 5 for affordable healthcare and 5 for affordable rent.
Yeah, I think I had the same question as the gentleman on the end, like saying that, so we got all this information, so what, so we have requests for more street lighting, more playgrounds, and I think I saw, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, Gabriela Gerhardt, she said that there's barely any parks north of McKee or in our priority neighborhoods at all. So we know that the need is established, even with our small sample size. Mm-hmm. We know the need is established. So what? And I know you might not be in a position to tell me exactly what we're going to do, but just what happens next.
Again, great question. So the reason that all of this data has been collected is the update of the strategic plan. There's about 6 years ago, there was a strategic plan created called the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative, which is where this committee was created. And that plan needs updated. And so my role this past year, I looked through that plan. It wasn't very data driven. And they had pillars and it was very high level. So as I go through this update, I wanted it to be much more targeted specifically for the neighborhoods, to actually create and implement that change, because that last plan was very broad, and I looked through and to try and understand, what goals did the city reach here, and I just don't feel like they were specific enough. So the purpose of this is to guide the plan, which will guide the next 5 years of what will be done in these neighborhoods. And I totally understand the so what, like why are we doing this? Why are we collecting this? The residents have the same questions, and it's essentially to make this plan the best that it can be, and a working plan, not just a plan that we create and it never gets pulled back off the shelf. It really is supposed to guide the role and make sure that we're supporting the neighborhoods in the areas that they need, and not just broadly, because each one is unique and different. So that's what this information is for. Once I'm presenting this now because, like I said, it's going to be a guide for the goals and objectives of the plan. So when I bring that draft plan back, we'll work through that and say, based on the information that we gathered over the summer and the quantitative data that we got, these are why we're recommending these programs or implementing these projects.
Okay. Yeah, no, thank you. And I think that's all great too. And I think if we're going to go a little bit more quantitative, then it might be good to understand like how we measure success. Like whenever this is instilled into the strategic plan for the next 5 years, seeing like, hey, this is what we were told in 2025, almost 2026, and here are the success stories that we got from it. Like we got lighting in this neighborhood. Right. We increased our playgrounds by like 20%. So just something. If we're going the more quantitative route, which I agree with, ultimately all the time, then that might be good too. Just measuring success, that metric. Yeah,
that's the plan, is to have like a matrix where you can see that the plan has been implemented. Since it's a 5-year plan, it will be evolving. I mean, these neighborhoods will change in 5 years. So that's why it would be good for it to be a working plan. But some of the goals, yes, you'll be able to see. We had 5 vaccine clinics in this neighborhood over a span of 5 years. So we had 25 vaccine clinics in 5 years. We had X amount of people vaccinated at these clinics. That type of information. We're on the same page there. The previous plan didn't have anything like that. So that's why we're pulling this information now.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
I also want in this plan to each summer to see some outreach done to let the residents know, hey, we didn't just collect this information from you and do nothing with it. We really did take what you had to say and are using this information and city resources to support you. So these surveys that we give you really do matter and make a difference. Okay, we went into North Fish.
I have one more comment that I just kind of looked at, which is especially for Allied, we have quite a number of responses for the Spanish version of the survey. And I think it's interesting to highlight that for the Spanish speaking, or for the residents who put stickers on the Spanish language version of the poster, if you click into Allied, the biggest concerns for that subgroup of Spanish-speaking individuals was to calm the street traffic. So let's see, under transportation, traffic calming. And then also access to affordable health care. So health services, and then access to affordable health care. So I think that it's interesting to highlight that we didn't have a ton of residents use the Spanish language posters, but of those residents, those were the 2 highest needs that popped up.
Yeah, that is really interesting. And I will say some of the residents, when I remember going through this, I would ask, do you speak Spanish? And they'd say, yeah, but I also speak English. And I was like, that's great. We can talk in English. So I think there is some overlap with the English board and the Spanish board, where we might have some bilingual speakers there. And then Jamestown. So again, this is where we got the least. We got 15 votes here. But it looks like transportation is their biggest, as well as followed by safety, so better, best service and more routes, and then emergency preparedness and responses, what they're looking for as we go through the data here that we've pulled from Census and ACS. It does kind of demonstrate that this neighborhood, in terms of necessities, maybe is a little bit stronger. They're looking not so much for food security, but more for health services or things that once you kind of have those basic needs met, you're looking at the next thing. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the data itself is from a very small pool and a very niche demographic to be able to speak to light as to the need for Jamestown in particular. And I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
Due to the limitation of, survey and events that could allocate more opportunity to be able to get this concerns of theirs raised.
Right. Do you feel like it's a misrepresentation?
No, not a but not a complete representation. Yes. So it's not a misrepresentation, but it's not a complete representation.
Okay, that's good feedback. Thank you.
I had a question. So, but yeah, like Sharif was saying, it's not like a misrepresentation because we've heard some of those same sentiments expressed, especially when the mayor was going from district to district and talking about the various concerns that constituents have. My question is there a plan to kind of merge all of this together to take the strategic plan for the entire city that we did, that we spent there's a lot of time went into crafting that plan. And I think some of the materials that manifested from that can be used in conjunction with this to be able to form more robust responses to some of the things you got here and be a complementary process that I think would better aid all of this to come together.
Yes. So when the citywide strategic plan was going through, it did talk specifically about the healthy neighborhoods and micro grants, but from my understanding, that plan was never adopted. And so it has, I like the ideas that it had, and my plan was when that citywide plan, when it did, which it didn't get adopted, but when it did, what they had in there, I was going to include in here, because if the city would like to see that and it's in the overarching strategic plan, it needs to be here as well. So the micro grants, I think, are very interesting and can be utilized to incentivize certain things. And I plan to have something about micro grants. I think these neighborhoods could really benefit from some neighborhood associations, and I don't believe that the city should start those. I think residents should create neighborhood associations. It's their neighborhood, not the city's. But the city can incentivize if you would like to start a neighborhood association, we'll give you $50, $100 to have some food, maybe rent a space if you need, and get people together. I think that could be a very useful way to incentivize these areas. And it also allows the city and people to know, okay, here's the leaders in these neighborhoods that have a really good handle on what the residents would like to see. Maybe residents who aren't as engaged, they can speak for them, and I feel like that's very important. So for that citywide strategic plan, I do plan on taking some of the ideas, but maybe reworking them a little bit. Any other questions? Oh, go Caitlin.
Just wanted to echo, just the importance of the sample size in all of this data. I think it's really important data. I think it's really important that our neighborhoods, have a voice in the citywide data. I think the one thing I might urge some caution around is, if we're looking at something like transportation versus housing, and there's 2 votes difference, and the sample size is, say, less than 1%, I would urge caution around really, using that data to direct decision making, because I'm not sure that the comparisons are within a neighborhood are necessarily representative of the neighborhood, just given the sample size. Yeah.
Yeah, totally understand. Some of these are very small sample sizes, but I think in terms of outreach and gathering, what I really wanted to make sure of, because when we get to the census data, the census does the best they can, but I wanted to make sure we had a sample where we knew that it was resident feedback specifically from that area. And that was the goal here, to help complement this other information and paint that picture a little more clearly. Okay. So that's all of them. Any more questions before I move on? No? Okay. So now we're going to get into the quantitative information. We're going to start here with the city as a whole to kind of give a big picture of where Fitchburg's at comparative to where these neighborhoods are. So I do want to point out, I don't know how many of you were following the email, but this data is an estimate. As all of it is, it's not going to be perfect. I collected this a couple months ago, so Esri has released 2025 information. When I was collecting all of this, we were getting 2022 through 2024. They released the 2025 in June. At that point, we had already paid for the credits for all of these variables, and so it's not 2025, but it is what we have. Right. It's what we're working with. The numbers may be a little different, but I want to give that disclaimer before we go through all of this. And all of this is coming from the same source. So when we are doing comparisons, it's not like I grabbed this from one source and this from another. It makes comparisons easier. And it's also geographical. So we used a mapping tool to do this. And I'll show you all of those photos later. But for the city, it looks like we're working with 33,000 roughly for the population. Again, since this is 2024, it's most likely increased couple thousand. Median age around 36. This HH is going to stand for household. So our median household income is around 87. From the mayor, it's sounding like it's maybe 5,000 more than that. Racial and ethnic diversity. So this number, to explain it to you, is coming from Esri, and what this variable is telling us, if we were to pick two people at random, the likelihood that they would be two different races. So here we have a 68.9% likelihood that would happen for the entire city. This percent of population that identifies as Hispanic is 36%. This number is higher than you may have seen in the past, because when I was looking through the census data, the census list, you can check off you're Hispanic, or you can check off that you're Hispanic and white, Hispanic and black, Hispanic and Pacific Islander. So I took all of those variables as well, because I wanted to capture the Hispanic population as a whole, not just someone who maybe both parents are Hispanic. It's Hispanic and potentially another race. So that's why that number is looking a little bit higher than some of the others. If we had just taken the Hispanic variable, it would have turned out to be around 18% for the city. And park amount, we do have more parks than 40, but some of them are undeveloped. And I tried to take the parks that are in our healthy neighborhoods. So those would be neighborhood parks, community parks, and I believe area parks. So trying to make sure that when we're comparing it, all of the data is aligned in that sense. Questions here?
Yeah. So, did you see that? Yeah. So for the median household income, because I think we're going to start with the Fitchburg profile and then head down to the priority neighborhoods. Yep. For the acronym, for people that are just, what I always think about is people that just see the presentation without, or just see the PowerPoint without the presentation.
Right.
So just to kind of dispel any confusion, can we just write, just household and then parentheses HH, because I think he used HH for the rest. So just suggestion. And then racial ethnic diversity, I didn't know what that meant. So if it's a percentage, can we put a percentage and then put a footnote in how they got that? Like, I didn't know it was like if you pick two people at random, what's the chance that they'd be from two different races / ethnicity? For the Latino Hispanic, I think that definitely needs a footnote as well. Or I think we should relook at that data point. Okay. Because I think the number I saw was like 16 or 18%. And those are Latinos that, because I know this is a little tricky, right? Because Latino Hispanic is an ethnicity, where white, African American, Asian is a race. So, for example, like I identify as Hispanic, like indigenous and white, because that's just where I come from. But people can identify as Hispanic and African American. Like that's a very common thing. So I think that should be broken out just a little bit more. I can't tell you how to do it. We can sit down and talk about it and have like a little brainstorm sesh on that one. But I think there should be more clarification because I think if somebody looks at that face value, they might think something different and it might be a little bit misleading. And then same thing for the park amount. I think it would be helpful to have that as a footnote. Like this is not including what you chose not to include. So that's just where I'd go with that. That's just what I was thinking about when I first saw this slide. Yeah.
I totally agree with you there. I think in terms of purpose for this slide, I didn't include it because I knew I would be explaining it to all of you. When it comes to the strategic plan, all of this information will be in there. Because I even had to put it in my notes when I was going through all of this data and cleaning everything up. Like, what is this diversity? How are they pulling it? And what is this number telling me? Because, you look at that and it's like, okay, 68.9, what? So I agree with you. I understand where you're coming from. In the strategic plan, this will all be outlined and accessible for people to understand. Just it was a misstep for the nature of this presentation. I knew I was presenting and could answer those questions, but in the future, we'll make sure we clarify things.
As long as the end result is good, then I'm fine. Yeah. So thanks.
Any other questions on this?
Just a comment, like going off what Manny was saying. I think that number, the odds ratio that you include for racial ethnic diversity, like I think you can keep that. But I also think if we're going to get specific, especially around breaking out the different classifications one can be in terms of being Latinx culture, I think it'll be helpful to do the other categories the same way, like list out like the proportion of like Black, white, Asian American, Native American, Indigenous, Asian Pacific Islander included with, and then you can keep the odds ratio number then, because then it would make more sense around like if somebody could see the breakdown and then look at the odds ratio and say, oh, okay, I can see how if two people were picked at random, it can be 68.9% of getting the racial and ethnic minority.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just thinking on the back end from where I got all this from, how that analysis would be done. Easiest, because when I look at it, and we can talk through this more, but there's a ton of variables when it comes to race. And so I was trying to think, how can I do this efficiently and still paint the picture? Because like I said, I don't want to miss people, because some people, when they're filling out this survey, they will identify as Hispanic and white, which they take into account for this diversity index. So I think it's interesting, and I just need to think about how that would be done appropriately.
And I think you bring up a good point. And the only fear that I have too is like you worded correctly, like percent of population that identifies as Hispanic, like that's worded perfectly. But if somebody's skimming through this, they'll see Hispanic 36%.
Yes.
So that's all that I'm worried about.
And that's what I talked about today when we were getting those comments back from the mayor and her, how is this number so high? And I told Deanna, I said, the key word here that people probably don't recognize if they don't understand where the data is coming from is identifies, because it's taking into account multiple variables. And that I will make sure that I clarify that when we go through the strategic plan of this is saying someone who's can be multiple races, and it included is Hispanic. And I do also want to say when I go through this, that's how census listed the race as Hispanic and white. So this is not my terminology. This is the terminology that I'm getting the information from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Any more questions on this slide? No? Okay.
One last thing. And in the strategic plan, you'll have citations of like where this was obtained from, like Esri, and just to make sure.
Yep, I will cite all of that just for the nature of this presentation.
I'm so sorry. I get it. I get it.
I was like, it just takes a lot of time. And I mean, it would have been useful for me to do because then when I go to create the plan, those citations are already there. But it's just, it will be done. So if we move on here, I categorize these as income and economic indicators. Again, that HH is standing for households. So I tried to capture the best picture here of terms of poverty. So when I looked up how much do you have to make to be considered in poverty, and what was spit back out to me was 35,000 or less. So I took the variables. You can take a variable of people who make a range of the income, and I took all of those that added up until they got to 35, summed up those numbers, and then divided it by how many we had, and we ended up with 16%. And then Esri also had their own variable of households living below the poverty level. I really tried here to find how Esri determined what the poverty level is. I went through their variables document and it did not tell me. So I don't know how they determine poverty. I'll do my best to find that closer, because if I'm going to include this variable, I want to explain what Esri is determining is the poverty level. Go ahead.
And just for households, is that 2 adults and 1 kid, or 2 adults and 2 kids?
That is a great question, how they determine a household. I want to say 4.
Okay, that makes sense.
I will look at that.
Okay.
What's considered a household? I can't give you for certain. I do have the documents and the sites pulled up in the background that we could try and scroll through right now, but I feel like that's the best use of our time.
Yeah. Oh no, you're good. No, I was just asking like just interpretation and looking at these numbers here, but if it needs to come later, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That's why I'm showing you all of this information. So when I go through creating this, we've talked through it, and it's things that I miss when I'm looking at this. So all great. But I wanted these 2 variables because they're quite different. And I'm trying to understand why that is. For the city, like if you're looking at income level, it says 16% is below the poverty level, but then Esri's variable is saying 8%. So that's what we're working with there. This percent of LMI communities, LMI means low to moderate income. The federal government deems this number, and so how they determine if you're an LMI individual is they find the median income for a block group, and they times that by 0.8, and if you make that number or less than that number, then you are a low to moderate income individual. So for the city of Fitchburg, it's roughly 47% of the city is considered low to moderate income with a margin of error of 4%. This puts the city right on the cusp of being eligible for HUD funding. If we were at 50%, we would be eligible for HUD funds. And HUD funding is just federal grant money that the city can get to help support us. And the final variable here is percent of households whose gross rent is 50% more of their income. And we're looking at 9% for the entire city. Then we have households who are receiving food stamps. We have 6%, and percent of the population that does not have insurance is also 6%. So some pretty interesting stuff. This is what we'll be looking at the rest of the evening in terms of our healthy neighborhoods. And we can flip back through if any of you would like to compare how the neighborhood looks to the rest of the city. And again, I understand some of these terminologies, LMI and MOE. Next time I will write those out for margin of error and low to moderate income. Any questions here? Okay. And as we work through this, I'm really looking for you guys to point out things of, I do have like on each slide things to note, which is kind of showing, okay, this neighborhood has the highest percentage of households who are receiving food stamps, or they have the lowest percentage of households receiving food stamps. But if there's things that you're like, oh, well, this household or this neighborhood is really doing well in this area that I've missed, please point it out to me. That's the purpose of this discussion here, is seeing things that I have missed looking through this information. All right, I'll move on. Okay, so we'll start with Southdale. This map here is showing the land use. So you can see where the multifamily, the apartments are at, the commercial spaces, the park right there in the middle, some industrial, and some single family down to the southern part of the area. We've also have labeled some of the community assets, so Doxa Church. Briar Patch isn't on here. We had our intern make this, and she's great with ArcGIS Pro. She made it quite quickly, so this was not something that I put together. I helped her determine what we would like to see on this map. But in terms of editing it, if we want things edited, I'll have to work with our GIS person because this is not my expertise. But I think the map just gives anyone looking at this strategic plan, when it's done, a clear picture of what geographic area are we looking at. You can see that this specific neighborhood is between two very busy roads. And it's these commercial properties have some road frontage to the Beltline. So just something to take into consideration. But as we look at it, we've got a population of, again, these are all estimates, roughly 1,800 people. Median household income is $44,000. So if we look back to the city, the median household income is $87,000. Big difference there. The median age is 31. That diversity percentage is 86%, where if we're looking at the city, we're at 68, quite a bit higher there. Percent of the population that is identifying as Hispanic is 72%, and Southdale has one park. So for things to note on this slide, it has the lowest population of the four neighborhoods that we're going to look at, which impacts the numbers that we see here. Like North Fish has the highest population, so if they have larger percentage, it means more people are being impacted there. This neighborhood also has the second lowest household income, and it has the highest diversity percentage of all of our neighborhoods.
Just another aside, like I think when you put the strategic plan together and your like definition section or appendix, tell people why you used median versus the mean, and they don't mean the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other comments on this slide? Things that you notice? I know this is a lot of information, numerically wise.
Intern did a good job, so congratulations. I don't know if it was at him or her, but the map looks good, so
yeah,
she
did great. And she did it in like 30 minutes. All of these maps in like 30 minutes. I was like, I don't have any training in GIS, so I'm learning as I go, and it's been quite a process. But it's a super great tool that we have. Okay, we'll move on here. So this map is the LMI map. So the darker the block group, the more individuals, the higher the percentage of LMI individuals are there. And these orange outlines are the healthy neighborhoods. So the overlay, I had our GIS coordinator create this for us to just give a better, I think this gives a great picture of, you can see in the southern part of the city, it's not as dark. So when we are allocating our resources from the city, I think this map does a great job of demonstrating why we're allocating them where they are, that we recognize there's more low to moderate income individuals in these neighborhoods. So if we look through this, households whose income is below the poverty level, again, below that $35,000 a year, 36%, below the poverty level in terms of ESRI, 21%. The percentage of low to moderate income communities is 83%, and the percentage of households whose gross rent is 50% or more of their income is 23%. I put things to note here comparative to our other four neighborhoods is that they have the second highest percentage of households whose income is below the poverty level and the highest percentage of households living below the poverty level as well. So those are those first two variables. I know that the wording is similar. The second highest LMI block group of all of the low to moderate income communities, and it's tied for the highest percentage of households whose gross rent is 50% or more of their income. Oh, and there's I don't know why it's not popping up or populating here down in the right-hand corner, but down in the right-hand corner, I've included the legend that tells you the difference in coloring. So that will be included in the plan when people look at this map to understand what that coloring is telling you. I don't know why it's not populating at the moment. Any comments or questions here? Okay. And then finally, we have a percentage of households receiving food stamps. I found this very odd that it's 0%. I don't think that that's right by any means. That is just what census gathered. I recognize that's incorrect. These are not my numbers. So I know, I'm sure all of you are seeing that and you're like, yeah, there's no way. I understand that. I just wanted to include it in here. So I do recognize that. The percent of population without insurance is 4%. I guess I can't give a gauge if I feel like that number is accurate or not. But that is what I received from the information. And then for this one, it said the lowest percent of households without insurance and receiving food stamps. Again, if you go back here from what we just looked at, it's showing that it's the highest percentage of households below the poverty level. And it's tied for the highest whose gross rent is 50% or more of their income. So it's highly likely that these numbers are incorrect. Maybe people didn't answer those questions related to these numbers, and that's why we're getting where we are. But I just want to make it very clear, I understand, based on this other information we've looked at, this is not representative of the community. And any questions or comments of that before I get into these final things I've included?
I want to kind of elevate that again, that the percent of food stamps makes no sense, especially with regards to some notes that I have from our previous conversation about Southdale, being that people were asking for more low-cost community meals and more grocery stores. And that, to me, indicates issues around food security. And so 0% of households on food stamps, is not data that I'm interested in using.
Yeah, it will be used just because it's going to be used for all the others as well. But it will also be pointed out that, like you said, based on the comments and the other information that we received, this data is probably highly inaccurate, and that will be reported. Any other
Could I
questions?
jump in, Jessica?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of saying the same thing I said earlier. I want to caution the use of data that we know is highly inaccurate. I understand that we have to share data. I'm curious because I know personally of a number of families who are on food stamps. So in the neighborhood, is there a way when we have data, because we've seen this in other places, right, where the data we just know is extremely inaccurate for whatever reason, there's just certain people who aren't answering or whatever the issue may be. When we know that the data is inaccurate, can we choose just an NA as an alternative so that we're not sharing and especially not using highly inaccurate data? Because I think that there's, some ethical concerns about using data that we know is inaccurate.
Yeah, that's a great point, Caitlin, and I understand there. For me, in terms of an ethical standpoint, I don't want to skew the data to paint a picture of, this neighborhood has a high need for food stamps when I've pulled this all from the same data source. So I understand what you're saying, but I think in terms of consistency of the plan, I will, like I said, mention that comparative to the other information, this doesn't align. But I do want to be, I guess the option would be if we wanted to take out the food stamps percentage, it would need to be taken out for all 4 of the neighborhoods. That's the option I would feel comfortable doing. So then none of the neighborhoods would be demonstrated for their food stamp percentage.
Or if there's an appropriate footnote, I think we have good reason to believe it's inaccurate. So whatever we can do to buffer the inaccurate data, I think would be.
And I'll bring the draft, and I understand that this is an issue, and I will point out the language that I'm using to present that this is this is not representative of the neighborhood when we look at this other information that we've gathered, and here's why. But I do feel like for our other neighborhoods, it's important to see that percentage. And we'll talk through it, but I think it's low for all of the neighborhoods. But it does also show which neighborhoods maybe have the most food insecurity when we're looking at all of them. Again, this is totally up for discussion. We can omit that variable, we can leave it in, and I can put language surrounding my thoughts or related to the other data. I'm not opposed to any of that.
I get what you're saying about the data continuity, like taking the same data point for different neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. I just echo the sentiment of Ari and Caitlin. But is there a way that we can cross-reference other sources that we have for households with food stamps just to kind of check our numbers? I feel like the numbers are low. Mm-hmm. So I think it wouldn't hurt just to have a second kind of a 4-eye on the food stamp figure. If we're already seeing some trouble with it downstream, when we come to Southdale, I think it wouldn't hurt to check a second source. But just
Yeah, I can look for a second source. What kind of drew me to Esri is Esri uses multiple sources. So they use census and ACS, as well as when I was looking for some of each variable is different. For some of them they use like building permits and they use registrations. So I'll look and see if I can find a different food stamps variable. Right now, specifically right now, I'm not sure that data will be available, but I'll make a note here to look for more food stamp information, see if I can find something. Okay, any more comments on
one more comment on that? Oh,
go ahead.
One more comment is just to name, as far as an indicator for food insecurity, food stamps and health insurance, but food stamps in this case are not eligible to some families. And so I would also caution the use of that data to show food insecurity, because many families who meet the income qualifications are simply not eligible for other reasons. And so again, just I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable using it to indicate food insecurity within a given neighborhood.
Okay.
Just something to be thinking about as we look through the data. And again, this is not just to you, Jessica, it's to our committee as we're making decisions, to not, understand context, I guess.
Yeah. Again, that's great for me to know when I'm working through the plan and the language, including that, some of these families aren't eligible, although that they might still be food insecure. Okay. So moving.
I'd also like to elevate. So for Southdale, so I just kind of looked through all the rest of them, and this 23%. Okay, sorry, back up. Can you go back one slide? I think it's here. There's 20. Yes, right in the middle of the slide. Percent of households gross net, 50% of household of income, 23%. I just feel like that's really high for a fifth or almost a quarter of community to be paying 50% or more of their income into rent. And so I feel like that not only speaks to income issues, but also housing issues. And I know that in our discussions of Southdale earlier from Parks Alive feedback, we didn't necessarily talk about affordable housing as one of the highest priorities. But I would say that if there's, a 23% number right there, that seems concerning to me. So I would add to the list of Southdale concerns affordable housing.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's why we gathered both sets of information to complement each other of, okay, this is what our quantitative stuff is saying that qualitatively we didn't pick up. And so it's helping to paint that picture to make sure we're getting everything that we can, so that it does make an impact on the neighborhood. So I agree that that rent and affordable housing is probably a priority that we didn't pick up in that qualitative information. Comments before I move on? Okay, and then I also included the school districts for these neighborhoods, the apartment complexes. Community is just, I that was the term I could think to describe this. It's more of the churches, the services that are being offered there already, and then businesses in the area as well. And I put this in here because as we work through the plan, these are people that I foresee us wanting to partner with and make those relationships with, see what programming they're doing, how can we strengthen it, ask those types of questions. How can potentially these organizations support us? How can they support the residents? Things like that. So if there's anything you feel like I'm missing on any of these lists, I would like to know. Comments or questions here? No?
I don't know the scope of our investigation, but it might be kind of interesting to see whether any of these businesses are employing residents from their communities, and kind of seeing where our residents from these different communities are employed, whether it's inside of their communities or outside of their communities.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't know where I could find that information.
The only thing close would probably be commute to work would be the only thing that would give you an insight into that, but there's no...
And I looked to find a transportation variable because I know a lot of these neighborhoods use the bus service, and I couldn't find anything that I felt like was great for it. So in terms of transportation, I'm relying on that qualitative stuff. And again, this is going to be a working plan, so I know things are going to change. And if we hear just transportation is a huge issue in one of these neighborhoods, we can pivot the plan and be like, listen, food security is no longer the biggest issue. We need to figure out this transportation thing that's going on over there.
I was going to say, like, we have some good transportation data in some of the council meetings. Like, you might want to check with Ross.
Okay.
And you might be able to give you a better picture of traffic patterns and things like that.
Yeah, I have talked with Ross about this, and he's been made aware. I will follow up with him to see if he's gotten anything. But yes, I've chatted with Ross, especially about traffic calming and things, to see what we can do. All right, everyone's good. I'll move on. Yep, school districts again. I laid that out differently. Okay, so now we're looking at North Fish here. Population is much larger, so almost 5,000 people in this neighborhood. Median household income is the lowest of all the neighborhoods here. So that means we have a lot more people in this neighborhood below that median household comparative to the city. Median age is 31. They've one park here. That diversity percentage is 83.4%, and the percentage of the population identifying as Hispanic is 58%. Then again, at the bottom here, I just noted that the lowest median income of all these neighborhoods, and they have the largest population. Questions or comments here? Okay. Oh, I don't know why that's not showing up. Odd. This map is the same map that we saw here. So we're looking at this neighborhood here. Pretty much all dark blue in terms of the low to moderate income neighborhoods. I don't know how to fix that on the other slide, but that's what we're looking at when we talk about that low to moderate income variable. So percentage of households below the poverty level in terms of ESRI, 19%. Below the poverty level who are making $35,000 or less is 41%. Percentage of those low to moderate income communities, 78% west of Fish Hatch. So that's going to be here. And then we've got 95% east of Fish Hatch. That's going to be here. And I think that's our largest number is 95%. That's pretty significant when we're looking at this map. And then the percentage of households whose gross rent is 50% or more of their income is 23%, again, tied with Southdale for that highest percentage. So that means Southdale has a smaller population. North Fish is much larger, so a larger number of people here are paying 50% more of their income for rent. highest concentration of LMI communities on the east side and highest percentage of households living below the poverty line in this neighborhood. Any questions on this slide? Nope. Food stamps, we've got 18% and 14% for insurance. So this neighborhood has the highest percentage of both in terms of food stamps and insurance. And then for their schools, housing, and local connections, this is the information I pulled. If there's anything you feel like I'm missing from this neighborhood, please let me know and I'll add it in. Because again, when we go to implement these goals and objectives and programs, I will be looking at these organizations of how can we work with them and strengthen those relationships with this neighborhood. Questions, comments? No? Okay. Here we have Allied. So if you see, that's where that finger is right there in the middle. That's Madison. The rest is Fitchburg. Population roughly 2,600. Median household income is 60,000, which is pretty high. Median age is 33. Park amount is 3. The diversity percentage is 87, almost 88%, and the percent of the population that identifies as Hispanic is 95%. For here, I put things to note: highest median household income, highest number of parks, and the highest percentage of population that identifies as Hispanic is in this neighborhood. Questions, comments here?
I'm honestly surprised at how, I don't want to say well, but like compared to some of the other neighborhoods that we looked at, the median income is much higher than Southdale and North Fishhatchery Road. The percent of households whose gross rent is over 50% of their income, is 12% as opposed to 23%, like half. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised.
I also noticed that when I pulled this out. And my first assumption was a big portion of this neighborhood is those single family homes. And those are doing, those homes are not comparative to Fitchburg has some very nice homes, but these homes are they're nice, and so I think that's what's skewing that information a little bit is the individuals who live in those single family homes there. The apartment complexes, the residential that you see, I think is also, I would say, skewed more towards those other two neighborhoods that we just looked at.
Well, if we're looking at priority neighborhoods, does it make sense to draw the boundaries in ways that maybe include fewer of the single family homes if we think that like that would change the data and make it, more reflect more of the need of the residents?
I understand what you're saying. I would say, again, I'm not trying to manipulate the data to tell it the story that we want it to tell us. This data was drawn based on those census blocks, which is the information that the federal government puts out. And so in terms of this, I understand where you're coming from. And I will point out in the plan that, again, the data is skewed because of these single family homes. But redrawing those boundaries, I'm not opposed to that. Again, I don't want to manipulate the data to tell a story that that we want to be told.
Yep, I understand exactly what you're saying. I am not trying to manipulate the data. What I'm interested in saying is, could we consider, like, how possible would it be to get data for a different segment of what we're calling allied neighborhood that would not include the what we think might be skewing the data, which would be the single family homes, and then compare, the data that we have that you spent, I'm sure hours, more than hours, compiling, here, compare that with a differently drawn allied, and see if that is potentially more in line with the types of communities that we want to be supporting with the healthy neighborhood programs.
To do something like that is possible. Like I said, we'd have to redraw these boundaries. But the data is still coming from these census blocks here.
Ari, what was your reasoning for wanting to take the single families out?
Do you want me to answer? Sure. I told her, so the median household, sorry. I told the median household income here is significantly larger than our other neighborhoods. And so I said that the single family might be skewing that information there. They may be making more than our residential communities are here. So
are they far enough standard deviations from the mean where they would be perceived as outliers so they could be removed? And if not, then we'll have to keep them.
Yes, and I can try and find data that in depth to get that and see if that's the case. It would take a significant amount of time because I'd have to redraw the boundaries to compare those two to get that understanding. But it's not impossible by any means. I can look at that if you all feel. I don't know. I'm nervous to say that I can go do that because that is going to take quite a bit of time.
And I was just asking, because I'm assuming what Ari is trying to do is take that out, and then if you take those incomes out, then the number or the median would look more realistic. I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Because these single family homes are skewing. I'm assuming the data that we're looking at farther to the right because they're larger than what everybody else was, and I think what you could do is just look at how much if you calculated the mean and then looked at these households we're referring to, are they that much higher where they need to be they need to be removed?
Yeah, I'll make a note to look into that. Also, I want to point out with this neighborhood that the allied neighborhood, that's Madison, I don't have their information. I didn't pull it because it's not Fitchburg, but it is very low income. So the surrounding area, that little finger right there also does benefit from the resources that Fitchburg provides. I know that they're not Fitchburg residents, but the city of Madison and Fitchburg works closely to help this neighborhood, because Madison has also identified the neighborhood as somewhere that could benefit from some more support. Any other comments here? No? Okay. All right. So this total number of households, I had put it in my notes. I did not take it off this slide. I apologize for that. The percentage of households whose income is below that poverty level, so below 35,000, 16%. For ESRI, it's 6%. The percentage of low to moderate income communities, this BG stands for Block Group 4, Track 6, 82%. And then Block Group 1, Track 6 is 49%. Percentage of households whose gross rent is 50% or more, their income is 12%. And for this neighborhood, I put things to note is they have the lowest percentage of households living below the poverty level and the lowest percentage of households whose gross rent is 50% or more of their income. Questions, comments? Okay. Here we're seeing that these households, 14%, get food stamps and 8% do not have insurance. Things to note here are the second highest percentage of households receiving food stamps and without health insurance. Any questions here? Comments? Okay. This is again a snapshot of the community, the schools that are there, the apartment complexes, and this community is very active. I will say that out of all of the communities I've been in, their neighborhood association has tons going on. The wellness center has tons going on. The food pantry, the Boys and Girls Club, very, very active neighborhood. And that's a really big benefit that they have there. And then the main business that there's more businesses in this area, but Thermo Fisher is the big one there. Questions, comments? Okay. Finally, we have King James Way, their profile. So population 3,000 roughly. Median household income is at 58. Median age is 32. They've got 3 parks. Their diversity percentage is about 81%, and the percentage that identifies as Hispanic is 49%. In King James Way, they have the second highest median household income and the lowest diversity percentage of the 4 neighborhoods. Questions?
On the map, I see 2 green spaces, not 3. And my first question is, where's the third?
The third one. So if you look at, it's like a little sliver, and I don't think it's in this map. If I pulled up Google Maps, there was a very small park in King James Way that has like a swing set and a slide and things. I don't know the name of the park, but there is a third one there. I cross-referenced this map with that because I looked at our parks map, and it's the teeniest little park, but it's there.
The other thing that I was going to point out about these green spaces is that they are very close to the single-family housing and the single-family or duplex housing, but especially the large Hugo Jamestown Park looks pretty far away from our multifamily housing, and so I'm just noticing that it seems like the multifamily, the residents of the multifamily housing units would have to walk further to get to green spaces and parks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any other questions, comments? Okay. So percentage of households in poverty for both are 8%. The percentage of low to moderate income communities, block group 2, tracked 5.06. 74%, that's all in Fitchburg. And then there's 2 other block groups, and for tracked 5.01, 66%, half of that block group is in Fitchburg, half is in Madison. And for the final block group, it's 29%, and all of that's in Fitchburg. And if we go back, look at the one map that does show up. So we're looking at that blue one there in the middle is all in Fitchburg. The one up above is about half, and that one down to the left is also about half. What I thought about doing here is we missed that northern part that's dark blue, so I considered redrawing that boundary to include that area. It's mostly single family up there, so I don't know, I guess if we want to have discussion on if that makes sense, redrawing that boundary, including them in there. They're just kind of, that area's out there on its own. Right up there in the north. Well, right here, this little little guy up there.
And if we redrew our maps, that would be part of Verona Road. What? No, Ally?
King James Way.
Okay.
We can discuss that later as well. I put for things to note down here, it's the lowest percentage of households in poverty, second lowest percentage of households living below the poverty level, and the lowest percent of LMI communities in block group 1 tract 506. And that's that light block group that you just saw there. I believe those are mostly single family. And that's, if that was dark blue before, that's honestly positive feedback. That means that it could be positive or negative. It means either people have increased their incomes and they're doing better, or those families have been pushed out and moved somewhere else because of pricing. So finding a variable for that is difficult, but those are the options there. Again, and I didn't look at that previous data, so I cannot say if that is what's happened or if that block group was that same color 5 years ago. Questions or comments on that? Sorry. No? Okay. And then 4% of the households here are on food stamps, and 6% of the population is without health insurance. And both of those are the second lowest. So when I looked at this, I see a lot of positives in this neighborhood. The neighborhood still can use support, but there's a lot of positive things happening here. A lot of things that can be strengthened, I think, in this neighborhood. The school district, they're a Verona Road or Verona School District. So same with Allied. Allied is Verona and King James Way, and the Southdale and North Fish are both in MMSD. And this is what we've got in terms of businesses, apartment complexes, and community. And if you guys look at this later and you see that there's something I missed, please let me know and I can add it in. Okay. So that's the wrap on the neighborhood data information. Again, do any of you have comments, questions on all of that? I know that's a lot of numbers and things to try and take in. And not be able to see it all when you can compare all the numbers on one screen. But I wanted to get all of your feedback before I go and draft the plan, because it is going to be, a lot of it's going to be kind of rooted in this information to help drive those initiatives and justify why the city is doing what it's doing.
I have 2 comments/questions. One is there any way that we would be able to play around with the data that you were able to play around with?
In ArcGIS? I guess I could send, well, let me ask.
Okay. Or maybe I could set up like a one-on-one meeting with you or something. Yeah.
In addition to that, you currently have this file sent as a OneDrive. Is there a way you can include access to just add side comments to that particular template and send that back to you?
I was trying. Okay, so I had to do a roundabout way to get you guys this PowerPoint, because I made it in Canva, and then the file was too big for our software system. Yeah, I compressed it, and it was still too large.
Really?
So
how many pages?
I will see what I can do to get it shared. Because I wanted you guys to be able to mess around with that visual that I made of all of that qualitative information, and when I merged it into a PDF and made it you just can't do it. So it's a little tricky. I'll see if I can figure out how to share Canva.
I think you do have a PDF right now. I think it's just actually granting access to be able to add comments to the PDF.
Oh, okay.
That would suffice.
Yes,
But then also modifying those charts to be able to actually either label those numbers at the top right corner, So we can just use those for reference, or using a better pictogram to depict that.
Okay.
Might be better.
Yeah. Yes, I will look into getting you guys that. Any other questions or comments on the data?
When should we expect the first iteration for the
draft?
Yeah.
Great question. My goal is to have that draft done by December. And so one of the agenda items was to talk about having a meeting in December, adding an additional meeting, because this is supposed to be our final one of the year. So adding that additional meeting in December to go over that draft plan and go over some of the grant documents before the beginning of next year. We can start that discussion now if we'd like. I've talked with FACTv, and they're available to do that for us. So that's, I guess, ultimately up to all of you if we would like to have that. And then I would bring the draft plan forward and talk about the grant documents.
Well, my other question kind of maybe segues into that a little bit, because I'm noticing from the data that we just looked at that it seems as though Southdale, North Fish Hatchery Road neighborhoods are the two neighborhoods that seem to have the data that would support us concluding that we should support them the most, as opposed to Allied or King James Way. And again, I'm interested in seeing if that shifts, if we draw boundaries differently, but based on just the data that I see right now, it makes sense that maybe for our grant process, we would question, should we be giving equal weight to all the different neighborhoods? I mean, I don't know what the answer is there, but seeing some very different data across the different neighborhoods, I feel like that could potentially be a discussion point as well. And the answer may be, no, we just, do like equal, 25%, 25%, 25, or however we've done in the past. But I do think that that's worth the question.
I would agree. I noticed that as well. Those two neighborhoods do appear, from a data perspective, to benefit the most from the city supporting them. I will say, in terms of the grant program for 2026, if I want to start that discussion, but I don't feel like it's possible to do like a full override of that program for 2026, because we would have to go through that process and then take that to council, and council would approve. But I do want to start that discussion, because additionally in the strategic plan update, I do plan to have some information of how to restructure this grant program so that it's more efficient and effective than where it's operating at right now. So that will be a goal in the plan for the committee to talk about that. But I think for 2026, I have a couple ideas that we can talk about here in terms of tweaking some things, where then this document won't need to be taken to council, and it's just some small changes. But if we did a full override of it, it would need to go back to council to get approved. So here, I just wanted to review our current focus areas and how we're currently evaluating our grantees. I've talked with staff as well, and a lot of questions have popped up about the hub that's being built in North Fish and kind of what's going on there. And my idea is to include some language in this next round of grant funding that incentivizes some of our grantees to hold partial of their programming at the hub. Again, as we just talked about, North Fish Hatchery, from a data perspective, could stand to benefit a lot from resources, and the hub is in that neighborhood. So staff, I feel like if we add that language, it would be beneficial for the Healthy Neighborhoods plan as well as the grant program. But I wanted to get all of your feedback on that, because I think then we would include in the evaluation criteria, do they have part of their programming? Are they planning to do part of their programming at the hub?
Okay, so this is a comment that basically brings us back a year ago. But at one point in December of 2024, I had a meeting with Jay Allen, and we talked about Alder Jay Allen, and we talked about having different pillars and therefore different focus areas for the grant. And so I'm curious if I'm curious about a couple of things. One is, how set in stone are these focus areas for the 2026 grants or grant process? And then, would people be interested in considering other potential focus areas for the grant? So I have an email that has like other ideas, but we don't have to start with that. We could also just start with a discussion from other people, or please.
I will say, if we change the focus area, I don't foresee us changing the focus areas for 2026. It would have to go back to council. I think when I looked at it, consolidating the youth mentoring and youth education to changing it something regarding youth, maybe have 4 focus areas instead of 5. But if we do a whole rewrite, I think the whole program would need rewritten for 2026, and that would have to be taken back. Again, that's a discussion that will be had in the future. But right now, in terms of 2026, we just don't have enough time left in the year.
So then your question for this slide is,
it's to start the discussion. It's not to make change for 2026. Just to start that discussion of maybe what does this look like, and not make the change in 2026. Because when I come with that draft plan, like I mentioned, I'll talk about the grant program, and so having this discussion now. In that plan, I can have a clearer view of how you all would like to see it move forward, along with my ideas, and then in 2026 get that plan adopted and change the plan as we see fit.
With that in mind, then I would like to recommend that we consider additional focus areas or change the current focus areas for the future 2027 and on, to include things such as healthcare, childcare, transportation, translation services. Those are a few from the list that was sent out a year ago that I feel like are really important that we could discuss.
Any more comments on this? When I draft up the strategic plan, I'll put my ideas in there, and then I'm sure we can have a larger discussion about the grant program. But did just want to put this all back on your guys' radar, for lack of a better word, that this is what we'll be evaluating for the grant program in 2026. Okay, that's the end of this long presentation. Finally, we have this grant letter from Forestry to look over, and then if you all agree with the letter, we'll make a motion. Ari can sign, and I will get that to our urban forester for an award that she's applying for.
Is it Anna?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you'd like to read the letter.
I would love to not read it since I have dyslexia. So if anybody else would love to read out loud,
I read it. Or you want to go to the menu?
Thank you.
I don't mind reading it.
Go ahead.
Here you go.
All right, we have a letter dated October 9, 2025. Dear Urban Forestry Council Awards Committee, we would like to support the nomination of the City of Fitchburg and the Urban Tree Alliance for an urban forestry partnership Award for planting a diverse variety of trees in the City of Fitchburg Healthy Neighborhoods. The Urban Tree Alliance and the City of Fitchburg, funded by an Inflation Reduction Act grant, hired Operation Fresh Start to plant almost 100 trees on Traceway Avenue, Traceway Drive, Hugel Jamestown Park, and in the Maple Lawn Heights and Southdale neighborhoods. Although planting trees in healthy neighborhoods has been a priority for the City of Fitchburg, the number of trees planted has been limited by budget constraints and the presence of large, dead, or declining trees, many of them ash. The City of Fitchburg has been removing and replacing dead and dying trees in the healthy neighborhoods as budget allowed. The plan was to plant as many trees as possible each spring with existing budget resources in order to capture all available tree planting spaces along streets and in parks. This project expedited a complete tree canopy renovation of the entire Southdale and Maple Lawn Heights neighborhood in a single year. Operation Fresh Start planted a variety of tree species, many of which were not present in these neighborhoods. This gives the urban forest in healthy neighborhoods resilience against future pests or diseases. These trees were strategically planted to offer shade at bus stops and along multi-use paths for residents commuting to work or recreate. This project caught up the tree canopy in healthy neighborhoods, which are now on track to reach the City of Fitchburg's 30% tree canopy goal by 2050. As a result, these trees will offer shade and beautiful to the residents of City of Fitchburg healthy neighborhoods for years to come. Sincerely, City of Fitchburg Healthy Neighborhoods Committee.
I motion that we move to adopt the letter for, what was the exact title? Sorry, hold on. That we move to adopt the review for the Urban Forest Council Award letter about the work that has been done for tree planting in the healthy neighborhoods.
I can second.
Motion moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I think it's awesome. I'm really excited about having more trees in the city. Love that our urban forestry is going for it. That's my discussion. Okay, discussion closed. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously, and I will sign this. Okay, agenda item 5F, additional meeting in December. Steph, please take it away.
Yes, so we did mention this briefly about having an additional meeting at the beginning of September to talk about the strategic plan and the grants. I guess engaging, are people available? Are people open to that? If not, we'll have our first meeting at the beginning of January.
I'm open to it. Like if that works. I mean, since it'll be so long before we talk again, I think it makes sense for the December meeting if folks can make it and I'm traveling.
Yeah, as long as it's early December, I think my family will be away for the Christmas holiday.
Okay. Yeah, I'll also be away for the holidays.
Yeah, just reasonable December time.
Yes.
But yes, of course. Yeah, I think I agree with Donald. If it's going to be, we don't want to wait too long to look at the issues that are important to the H&I. So.
Right. Yeah.
Just a point of clarification. Do we not have a meeting in November?
No, we do not. We don't have a meeting scheduled for the rest of the year.
I think that's for budgetary concerns.
Yes. Yes. So if we have this meeting, you may not be compensated for being here. And I can see if it's in the budget, but
it's not.
I was told it might be a possibility.
Really? Okay.
Donald will take us.
I know. What did we net? Like $45? Like at the
no,
something like that at the end of the with the our budget that the mayor approved?
Oh, for the 2026 budget?
Yeah, like the upcoming. So this would fall under this current one then? Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yep. Yes. But yes, that would be, you may not be compensated for being here for the next one. I guess is why the discussion is happening, also to see if you all have the time.
I mean, worst case scenario, we could just do it. I mean, instead of like having folks come in if they aren't coming, just do it virtually.
Yeah.
But still can talk about the same stuff.
We're welcome to do it virtually as well. Because then if you are traveling, you can hop on. Would we prefer virtual over in person?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you have kind of a pen, please? All right. Thank you. Virtual meeting for December. I agree with you all wholeheartedly. Okay, I'll get that on the calendar for a virtual meeting for us. Good to know.
Okay, lovely. And agenda item 6, report from department?
Yep.
Okay.
So for you guys, the hub, toured it yesterday. The swings work. I can let you know that. The swings work really well. But they're planning to do a ribbon cutting in November. So look out for that. I can also send an email when they plan to do the ribbon cutting there. The neighborhood navigator, right now, we do not have one. Looking at restructuring that program a little bit, strengthening that. The position is open. The position's open, so if you have somebody in mind, we've changed it to one person and not two, so one person roughly 10 to 20 hours a week. Bilingual, preferred, heavy emphasis on bilingual, but that position is open at the moment. For December, bringing the draft forward, and then the mayor and the 2026 budget, the H&I program has moved under a new department called Community Services. So that means that my position will be moving to this new department under Community Services, and I will now be under Jill, who is currently the director of the Senior Center. That's all the updates I have at the moment. Any questions?
I think there's some chatter about holding these meetings at the hub. Is that a possibility in the future?
I don't know.
Okay, sorry. I thought I saw that. I don't know. I think that's still up in the air. So.
I think that hinges on. I don't know if FACTv can operate there, and
That's right. That's right.
I cannot answer that question for
yeah.
you.
No. Of course, yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right. Agenda item 7, announcements.
There's no announcements.
I have an announcement. On November 8th from 10 to 12, there's going to be a Leopold trash pickup. Meet at the Fitchburg Springs Park at 10 a.m. or, whenever between 10 and noon. Yeah. Okay. No other announcements? Oh, go for it.
There is a book sale from the Fitchburg Friends of the Fitchburg Library going on October 16th through 18th. Low price books, youth education, a lot of kids' books. It's always a great turnout, always a fun time. A lot of volunteers from the community. It's going to be held at the Fitchburg Library right across the street, usually in one of the back rooms on the second floor. And yeah, a lot of kids' books, a lot of foreign language books. Would invite everybody to attend.
Amazing. And can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. We are adjourned at 7:29 p.m. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.